and sound great.
Hi there, Leslie with Moxxi Coffee, and I am here today with Oindree. She has joined us from, where are you sitting today?
Beaver Creek, Ohio.
Beaver Creek, Ohio. I stumbled upon her, I don't know if it was a website. I'm not even sure where I stumbled upon you, but I remember seeing something on your website about being very involved with STEM. You're helping people get through their graduate programs. Tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, I'm glad you stumbled upon my website. That's really encouraging because I've been blogging. It started as a blog and now it's expanded to kind of like a podcast and a YouTube channel and all of that. But I started blogging about graduate school in grad school myself, and it's called howtophd.org/blog for the blog. And then I also post on different types of social media to kind of get the word out that I do have these resources available for free for students or young professionals. As I've kind of moved on from grad school to working in the professional world now in STEM, and I'm still in that research kind of domain, I think it's very important to like help students, because when they're still students, they don't know all their options, and they're especially with graduate school, there might be a lot of anxiety, and in general, grad school does have a lot of mental illness. So like just kind of spreading awareness about that and helping students out with actionable steps, that's kind of the whole goal of my blog and overall content. And now it's kind of grown, so I'm glad you found it.
Yeah, there was a lot of little tidbits in there that caught my interest.
Yeah.
I think it was that you have your PhD in physics.
Yes, yeah.
And you're doing some research with that now?
Yeah. So I did. I actually been doing research for a long time. So something I wanted to mention, as far as like the students, just for their awareness, you can start kind of doing research like really early on. Like I'm not actually from the U.S. I came over from India to go to college here. And one of the things that I knew and that really attracted me towards U.S. school systems, or higher education in general in America, is that you can do undergraduate research. So I actually used to do undergraduate research in college, and then that really helped to get into graduate school. And then I did graduate research, mainly focused in physics and more focused, I guess, towards particle astrophysics. So like that's like the subtopic, and then there's the subtopic and all that. I kind of leveraged my skills from graduate school and some of the techniques that I was using in grad school for my grad research in basically radio neutrino astronomy.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, it's radio astronomy, and then it's done with the particle neutrino, which is a type of lepton. It's like a much lighter cousin of the electron. So that's why the topic is called particle astrophysics, because usually you can think of astronomy. It's a really old field, because you can look up in the sky, night sky, and see the stars, see the constellations, and that's kind of like your traditional astronomy. You can do that with telescopes. So generally, astrophysics has utilized like regular traditional methods, like using visible light. But you can also use, basically in the last about 100 years, and especially in the last couple of decades, we've started using other methods, not just visible light, but using like gamma rays and X-rays. Sorry, there's a call coming that I should. Now it's gone. Okay, are we back?
Yep, perks of being live.
My
reminds me to shut my phone down.
Yeah, I was gonna ignore my phone, but it goes to my Mac as well because they're all connected. But anyway, I was saying, like, basically now we can use other particles. Light is a type of particle, but you can also think of doing astrophysics with like cosmic rays, neutrinos, gravitational waves, and my kind of astrophysics that I did in grad school was with neutrinos, like using the neutrinos that are coming out of far away astrophysical phenomena. You like can produce neutrinos. Even something like our sun produces neutrinos, and you can collect that, or like you can make measurements of those neutrinos in some way or shape, and it's different for every experiment. And that is like the way of doing astrophysics for us. So that's what I did, and I said radio because it was the radio waves came out of the neutrino's interaction in its detection medium, and that led to me learning a lot about like how to do experiments with radio waves. And it's its own like world. Once you get into like RF, radio frequency type of work, you become like this RF person, and then you realize like you belong in this world that like basically there's some people that know a lot about RF work and get really good at it, and there's a lot that you can do with that. So now I use that RF background in my current work, which actually happens to be for the Air Force. So the Air Force also uses all of these same technologies. It's just the goal is defense and survivability of our warfighters and high-value assets rather than astronomy. So it's basically like the methods that I was using is the same, like it overlaps between astronomy and the defense world, but the goal is no longer like trying to learn about astronomy. It's to help protect our warfighters. So that's kind of how I ended up doing what I do now, which is completely different from what I was doing in academia, but just what happened.
So you are a civilian employee of the Air Force as your main job, and then the blogging and all of that is, just kind of your side passion?
Yes, yeah. It's still a side hustle. I started blogging when I was in graduate school, and it was very small. I think the efforts have kind of grown now, but I still just do it myself. And then I do have contributions from other people sometimes, like yourself. It's nice to collaborate and kind of make it bigger than just me doing stuff. But yeah, I've been kind of doing that on the side. Like that's not really like what sustains me. I guess I still need like a job. And so yeah, I was in grad school. Then I was applying to mostly academic jobs, and then kind of like last minute, I changed my mind and didn't continue academia. Instead, I thought, okay, I'll try something completely different, because like the work opportunities basically in academia can be very narrow and kind of different, I guess, because academia it's very competitive, and it basically involved doing some postdocs and things like that, and then maybe becoming a professor, and usually chances for becoming a professor is really small. So I kind of wanted to open up my options, and this is something that a lot of people kind of struggle with, because when you've always been in academia, it's like the rest of the world is just unknown. You don't know like how to kind of get a job or do anything outside of academia, and that's how I felt too, especially like the longer you stay in academia, like a PhD program is generally really long, and I was in that environment, which is a very wonderful environment for research and like kind of like doing whatever you're passionate about, but it does kind of shelter you a little bit from the rest of the world and like getting a job and all that kind of stuff. So that's another reason why I started blogging about it so much, because I wanted to let people know that, well, if you're feeling this way, where you're kind of unsure, like what types of jobs you might be able to get, or how to even do that, or how to write your resume, or how to interview. I started blogging about all of that as well. So now it's kind of like how to get through graduate school, as well as how to, successfully graduate, how to get a job in industry or government. Because I went into industry, and then as a consultant, and I started consulting for the Air Force, and then they hired me on. So now I'm directly working for the Air Force because of that. So it's been a couple of transitions, and I kind of write about that, and I have podcasts about the same thing. So it's kind of just letting people know that you have a lot of options if you kind of explore, even with something kind of like a weird background, like what I did, which was radio, neutrino, astronomy, like what is even that? So I think PhDs make people kind of really specialized and focused on this really narrowly focused thing. but it's always nice to remember, like, your skills are transferable. You can always make yourself useful in some other type of job. And that might teach you more about, just gives you more of a perspective and kind of opens up your options more. And then you get more confident about the whole job searching and how to do life beyond academia. So I think
I think that's really fantastic. And, I think it's, probably something that's maybe even a little bit more important for women, being that we bear children, and there's, should you elect to do so, there's a good, few month portion in there where, being heavily involved in anything is difficult. And I know we interviewed another fearless female quite a while ago, probably close to a year ago, who was in academia and stepped away to raise her children and found that there wasn't really a place for her to go back to because she'd been gone too long and it was so highly competitive. So I think that these are all really great things. Anytime anybody's willing to take their own time to help someone navigate through a difficult labyrinth of life, whatever portion of it, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually great. I mean, if a person like her can find any use of whatever I put out there, that would be awesome. And yeah, for sure, I think telling women about their options more, because clearly, historically, women have not had equal access to all professions. And STEM is definitely, especially certain things within STEM, like physics, engineering, even the defense world is very male dominated. But the thing is, in these
so much so they made a sitcom about it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so male dominated. It feels like you don't really belong there. But, if you just make room for yourself, which, by the way, is very hard, but once you start doing that and you gain that confidence, it's also where you can make money. And like, that's important, right? So like, giving women their options, like, sometimes academic jobs can also be much lower paying. Like usually you make about half of what you make in outside of academia. I'm not saying like professors don't make good money. I mean, ultimately, like when you get tenure and you become a full professor, they make good money. But up to that point, like postdocs and even assistant professors, like a more junior professor, will make around half, no kidding, half of what they're worth in the real world. Like in defense or in an engineering job or like a STEM job, if you have like a STEM PhD and STEM is more broad than some people might think too, like psychology, social science, that's all STEM. So like if you have these, especially if you have advanced degrees, and I'm not saying you need advanced degrees. I mean, plenty of people I work with have they don't have masters, PhDs, whatever, right? Like plenty of my bosses don't have PhDs, right? Like it's not needed, but if you do have them, if you're thinking about them, and even if you don't have them, I'm just saying that there's a lot of opportunities that is more, I feel like women might not always know about these opportunities, and yeah, they might not be the best, like they might not be as attractive because they're so male dominated, but there's things are changing in a way that is at least supposed to support women have access to these jobs. So when we take advantage of that, I feel like we have more opportunities at that point. Like it's more than just like the usually what women would consider for professions. I think, and I try.
Yeah, I think there's a much bigger conversation about, not only just women in STEM, but getting girls into STEM, which is very important.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I've been kind of involved in that from the start. So that's another whole topic. Like we, of course, want to encourage girls into going into STEM, and they might need this thing where we do the outreach and tell them their options, because generally boys have been told that they can do everything, and most things have been for boys, usually not girls. So now we are doing outreach to tell the girls that this is for them as well. Like they can do anything they want. I just recently did an air camp, which is kind of like a mix of STEM with the Air Force, where we worked on projects with the girls, like they were 14-year-olds, We worked on projects with the girls all day. And by the end of the day, they actually flew an airplane.
Oh, wow.
Like all. So it's the point is like if you can fly an airplane, you can do anything. So it's like that empowerment, that the strength and the confidence that comes from doing this type of thing, which hopefully we can hopefully every girl can feel that way, that they can do anything. But then it's also about the field. I feel like the fields have to change and be more welcoming and be more open to having women colleagues. I will say that doesn't always happen. Like I don't always feel like there's diversity and then there's inclusivity. Like we can increase our diversity numbers, but like if we don't actually include the people who are different from us, then you're actually being just a hostile environment for them. So I think there's more policies in place now to have that, like, for example, something like sexual harassment. Like, if that happens, there's more policy now where you can address it. Like you don't have to, like, hopefully you don't have to just kind of like deal with it because, and I bring this up because this happens a lot where women are like a minority, like when you're the only woman in the office, which I have been on a regular basis, like I've been the only woman in my class or like say in my branch or something. That happens a lot. And those types of environments that are so male heavy can be where historically women have had trouble because they're like that odd one out, and they might have some kind of problems because of that. But I feel like where we are different now and hopefully better is that there are at least things in place that you can do to address those issues. It's not just like you have to tolerate it because you're in a male-dominated field, So I think there's more awareness and there's more policy. I'm not saying like it's perfect, and we definitely have to do better. I think more than anything, I think nowadays, children, girls, people know that they can do anything they want more than before. But the fields themselves, like I'm in the government or Air Force or physics as a field, if it's academia or otherwise, they have to be open up more towards accepting that women, we have to be 50-50. Like
it needs to be more than just policy. Like it needs to just be people that understand and believe and embrace women in whatever field they want to be without it being the repercussions of a policy that's on paper. It's wonderful that those policies are in place, but come on.
Exactly. So I think I've been part of outreach for like so much that now I'm at the point where, it's great we're doing this outreach, but you guys, everyone has to change. Like, this is not about just telling the girls that they can do physics. It's also about physics has to change as a field to be better for girls and to be better for women. Because, and there has to be more representation in the leadership. Like, I feel like those need to be pushed more now, where women are recognized, they're promoted, they are in the leadership roles 50-50, so that they're in every step of decision making, things like that.
The women with PhDs are the bosses, maybe?
Yeah. Like, exactly. Like, I feel like, so now I'm starting to kind of go into more leadership roles and like managing and all that. And I feel like, now when I see something like a microaggression at work, I just address it, directly. And it's become more of a, like, I'd rather do that than let it slip.
Absolutely. I think you have to.
Yeah. It does take some energy and time.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point where if I let it go, that actually bugs me more. So now I'm just like, hey, you said this, you did this. This is how you can do better. Moving on, and in the past, women might have thought that they would become, like, they would get into some kind of trouble if they did that because, blah, 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 like, you want to just roll with it or whatever. But I think now there's enough of those, like, rules and stuff that I was talking about in place where you can be like, I'm well within my rights. Like, you can't get me in trouble for this. This is actually, you're the one who's wrong. So that kind of stuff, I think, is better. But yeah, by no means, we need to do a lot better for sure.
We're trying. I'm trying, man. Anytime that I can get somebody to, speak out about, the problems that exist in the patriarchy, I'm here doing it.
And I appreciate you. Exactly. This is exactly correct. Like it's still patriarchy stuff, right? It's still like a bro club, like a boys club. But basically, like the professional world that's dominated by males just tends to become a boys club. And I think everyone has to be kind of aware and work so that that doesn't happen. Because if you are just chilling, I think that's going to happen. Like I see that happening all the time. and that does have like those, it's more nuanced than like a direct sexism kind of thing. And it's the nuanced stuff that will chip away at your sanity anyway, right? It's that stuff, which I'm like, I see what you're doing. And, I just feel like a little bit not part of the thing, which I am well within my rights to be part of. Like stuff like that I think just makes it a less welcoming culture in an organization that needs to be, we need to be careful about basically, because that kind of stuff can really make it so that women will leave those organizations. And you can't blame them. They're going to go where they're more happy, like, what are you going to do?
Where it's not so tough every day and it doesn't wear you down, I've definitely made that decision that, man, just this isn't worth it.
Yeah. And I will say this, like, individually speaking, I think every woman just do what makes you happy. Like, this type of thing is very real. If it is chipping away at your, mental peace and whatever, I really think, so many women, like yourself, like they go start their own businesses, they start their own organization because they've just had enough. Yep. And that is inspiring. Women are, they're not taking this garbage anymore. They're taking control. I think women taking control of everything that's going on, of their lives, careers, whatever. And the more that can happen, the better. They make great leaders. If they want to run their own organizations, go for it. They're so competent. Like I've been brought up by, I guess, like a little bit about my personal stuff. Like I've been in my professional career. At every step, I think I've had women mentors, like multiple of them, and they've made opportunities possible for me, and they've been like the most competent people I've ever worked with. So, and usually they're like the best, and they're super duper highly qualified. They're like the most advanced. They manage way more than everyone else, and they do way more. They work way harder. They have the highest standards because
that's the problem. That you just nailed it right there. That's the problem.
Yeah. It's also sometimes can be a little harder to work for a woman because they have such high standards. Because they're the best because they kind of have to be. Otherwise, they don't get their opportunity. It's just. It's exhausting, I guess, if you think about it. But I will say that women do so well. I really want to say that in my experience, these women obviously they're so good at their job. Like they could do anything. Clearly, women can do anything. So it's really about women taking control. Understanding that and just going, just flying. I don't think it's like. Hopefully every woman hears that, believes that, because like this whole idea that women might not be good enough or something. That's just so opposite of what the reality is.
Absolutely.
I think women are actually better. They do really, really well in all of the technical work, all kind of managerial work, any kind of work. Pretty much, they're very competent, good workers.
Yes, but at the end of the day, for the most part, and definitely not a blanket statement, our body mass isn't the same as a man's. So there are certain things that we might feel a little more challenged. I know I'm very vertically challenged. I'm going to have my husband reach that tall thing every time, but other than that, I don't really need him for much.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Love him to death, but
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Like, yeah, if you, I mean, I think, asking for help is completely fine.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you can do that. Yeah, like, I feel like, I hope that that's another thing where you can be, I mean, women are people. I mean, people need help. Like, any kind of person, when they run a big thing, like you can't run a big organization or a project or whatever with, or your home life, right, without some help. I mean, I think needing some help now and then, or even regularly, and asking for that help is very healthy. It's completely normal. Hopefully women are doing that and also getting that help. And you need, basically, us women, we need people who are like our allies, basically, like
Yes.
they treat us with respect, and they will help us as needed. They're not like, I don't
without
know,
the competition and
they're not competing or patronizing or being toxic or whatever, right? They're just pure allies. They do their part. They do let us shine. Let us do our part. Just kind of like collaborate. Like we can all just collaborate and just get along. If everybody had that attitude, I think would be good. But that doesn't always happen. There's always like some sneaky stuff that goes on where like where a colleague isn't like completely transparent with you or something, and there's opportunities that you're not hearing about but everybody else is. Stuff like that does happen, but I think I've also had experience with a lot of allies too, like both men and women. So I'm not saying that like all men are like this, but yeah, for sure. But like
it's a societal thing, if it were just a few men, and I mean it's women too, if it were just a few men here and there, it wouldn't be such a widespread issue.
Yes.
But there's nearly as many women that are not hip to the cause, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, that is something I have to remember, that both men and women are part of society, and if society is sexist, women and men are both sexist.
So, I had a really, really wild experience. I showed up for a women's rally and a women's march a couple of months ago, and, here we are, we're a group of women with a few men sprinkled in carrying our signs about women's rights, and, as we were coming back into the park at the end of our march, this guy got into the face of this other woman who happened to be black, and I think he pushed her, and there was an older woman who defended the guy, and it was just like, my mind is blown. We're literally here at a women's rally, and he put his hands on her because out of the hundreds of women that were here, it was her that he didn't like her sign, and you're defending him? It's crazy. So it absolutely does exist. There are women who have believed that, we have a place and it's not where we necessarily want to be. So it is what it is. We're working through it.
I think you're right. I mean, that does happen. That's terrible. And I mean, I think, it's just sad. But hopefully, I hope that at least people understand that anybody can do anything, and the reason for like some of the motivations for some of my blogging about these other types of roles beyond academia is also to let people know, like, once you kind of like get a job. And so I was talking about how sometimes your colleagues might not tell you about some opportunity that they're discussing amongst themselves, stuff like that. But then what I'm also saying parallel with that is that in spite of all these types of shenanigans, you can still thrive. Because, like I have in my network in the Air Force, like maybe like a few, like I can probably count on one hand, like a few mentors and, women, and they're actually all women, I think. And we all discuss like career stuff amongst ourselves, if we're looking at a job or some like, big change or something, like some project stuff, like we all kind of discuss. And we're not all in the same office. We're actually all kind of like in different spots. Like I'm actually the only woman civilian in my branch, which is a pretty big branch, actually. It's not a small little branch, but I'm still the only woman civilian engineer person in that branch. So like, even though we're lower in numbers in these types of jobs, you can still kind of network to find other women, and then you become like this close knit of like network of those women who are all kind of similar. They're all ambitious. They all have goals. You might be job searching, and at that point, you're definitely a collaborative effort, which is bigger than and better than just one individual. And it's not, it's great. It's just awesome, and you can kind of thrive just based on that. You can kind of just, it's like I forget about all the other shenanigans because I have this. And, I know that I can rely on them for help, and I can help them, that kind of thing. And with it also kind of just makes us more focused too, because a woman in a field like this can be kind of lonely. Like she doesn't have as many friends as like maybe the guys do, because the guys are all friends with each other. We can also be more focused on our jobs because of that. It's kind of like I have less distractions because no one wants to be my friend. So I do my job really well, and then I network with my, few other women, and we help each other, and we find opportunities. So you can, and
that's just it. Make your own opportunities, make your own support system, go out and find them instead of, sitting back going, oh, this isn't really great. Make it great. Do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can actually do that, where it might be a little sad, but if you look on the brighter side of like finding your support network, especially I think it's super important to have that little network. Like even if it's 3 other people, 2 other people, 1 other person, I think it's so important to like talk about these things on a regular basis. And like I have a fellow woman scientist in the Air Force that I've even like emailed with her at like 1 a.m. And I'm not saying I do that all the time, but like it just helps. Like that one time I needed her, she was there.
Yeah.
It's just nice. Like it just makes you feel much less alone in these types of things. When you can see, oh my God, these women are successful. I can be successful. Like it just
exactly
it's normal. Like it's like, oh, I'm not like this alien in this world, right? This is normal. I can do this, whatever. And I think we can not only survive, we can thrive when that happens. And you can always like, you do this job. You don't like it because of shenanigans. You can always be looking for another job, and you can actually progress your career like that too. And we'll help you. Like, hit me up. Whoever is watching or listening to this, like, we'll help you.
So speaking of that, how do others find you? I know you have your website, howtopphd.org.
Yeah. You can add me. I would say one good way would be to add me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, my Oindree Banerjee. I have a LinkedIn.whatever /
the professional social network.
Yeah, professional. So you can message me on LinkedIn, or you can email me. So I have an email, oindreeb@gmail.com. So that's just my first name and last initial @gmail.com. And especially if you, specifically if it's like anything related with like academia or defense or Air Force, so right now my current title is research physicist in the Air Force here at Red Hat. And Red Hat is a huge base with a lot of research positions. So I mean that itself could be something like if someone who is in the audience here who wants to get a job outside of academia and they're about to graduate or something and they want to for sure you can feel free to contact me. Probably the email I gave you is fine, or I have a work email too that I can share. But yeah, I mean I would say getting kind of incorporated into I also do women in defense and AFWISE, Air Force Women in Science and Engineering, like kind of being part of these types of things and finding your little group Doesn't have to be a big group. And you might not like everybody there. You might not find everyone to be as supportive, but kind of finding some kind of network is always nice, especially like if you're new somewhere, like here in Dayton, Ohio, where Right Pat is. I know a lot of people move here for their jobs and then they have no one, like they're just new here. So for that kind of thing, being part of like Women in Defense or AFWise or something is helpful because it might expose you, like by doing some of the events, you just get meet people and like connect that way. So those types of things would be recommended, or just find me. And
what about your podcast? Where would one go for your podcast?
So my podcast is actually on everything. Like it's on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast. I think radio, something.
What's it called?
It's a How to PhD podcast.
Okay.
So it's the same name. I know that nowadays my content is more than just about a PhD, but I kept the same name, so it's just called How to PhD podcast. But that by no means, I definitely don't want to exclude anybody who is not doing a PhD or doesn't want to do a PhD. It's just the name I started with, and I guess haven't come up with something better yet. But if you're not doing a PhD, don't worry about it. Just come on over. It's basically focused on how to succeed as a student and early career professional, and then probably focused on women more because I have that experience personally. So I think anybody of that profile is welcome to any of this content, and they might find something useful there. But that's kind of like the way.
And I just want to circle back quickly because when we first started chatting, you said something about one of the reasons that you really started doing this and helping people try to navigate was because of the mental health issues that people were finding in grad school.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think that stems from mostly? Why that particular group of people struggles?
Yeah, I think, well, so for me personally, I had a lot of anxiety. Now, I think I might just have anxiety in general, so it's not just an academia-related thing, but I do know that there's some numbers where that suggest, and this is just like from the people who reported, that I think it's either half or more than half of the grad students have mental health problems. And I think, for me, I think that happens because when you're doing graduate school, and this might be true for more than just grad school, it might be true for like an early career academic as well. I think there's just like not very much work-life balance, like your whole life is just work. And you're very much expected to just do your research like all day long. Like you go to work, you do your research, and you come home and you do more research. There's not really healthy ways to kind of, it's not encouraged. I felt like really it wasn't very encouraged to kind of separate from work and do the things that would have helped my mental health. Like, for me, something like swimming, writing actually helps me with my mental health. Like I kind of revolted and said that I'm going to blog for my mental health because I really felt like anything I did that was outside of my immediate research was not really encouraged. Like you were supposed to just do your research all day and publish and
be happy.
Yeah.
And be happy that you're there and able to do it.
Yeah, for very low pay and all that. So I think it just doesn't have enough support for life is the problem. And then that just makes people anxious or depressed or whatever. And also if they're not getting the time and space and support to address any of these issues that are getting from bad to worse, then it's just going to get worse. And so like, if it's not encouraged that, yeah, you can go home and rest, or you can go home and go for a swim or seek counseling. Like I really felt like in grad school I didn't have time to have a therapist. Like it was just like I tried when I was in my first year. I was still kind of looking, and I was new in the area. That's the other thing in academia, you have to move constantly. Like for every position you usually move to a new area, so you have no friends, no family probably. And your therapist from the last place is not there anymore. and that's real, right? Like I laugh, but it's serious. It's like I tried to find a therapist in my first year of graduate school, and it didn't really click with the person, and then I just could not make the time and the investment in my mental health to find a better therapist. And I just had to manage it on my own throughout grad school, and that was kind of like killing me. It was, I could not wait to be done.
Survival of the fittest to the nth degree, right?
Sorry, what was that?
Survival of the fittest, like.
Yeah, it's very like that. Academia is very like, I think this is like a quote from a professor, but I'm sort of like, I don't want to, I think.
Author unknown.
Yeah, author unknown. I think someone actually said, like, yeah, grad students can succeed, the ones without mental illness, it's, okay. So like, yeah, it's very, I guess professors, academics have limited funds. They do a lot to get those funds. They want those funds to be utilized by students who are always fit and well and doing their work without having any mental health problems. And I think all of this expectation, all of the pressure in academia just makes mental health problems worse. It doesn't help, and if you don't let them, address the problems, it's just going to get worse. So I don't know what it is. It might even be lack of awareness, kind of like almost like cruelty.
Well, that was going to be my other question. Do you find, or do you know of other people that are kind of speaking out about this and saying, why does it need to be this way? Why? Because I have heard other people kind of pose that question. Why, to get to this end result, does it? A friend of mine, she wanted to go on and do a research thing, but she's a single mom. And she's like, there's no way I can do it. There is no part-time aspect for it. Like, you have to be 110% in, 85 hours a week in order to even be considered. And she's like, I just can't do it. She's like, why isn't there another avenue for this?
I really think it's really toxic. It's competitive in a toxic way. And again, even in academia, if you look at things, like I know in my department, it's mainly all white male professors, usually in a field like physics. And I really think that, how did they succeed, right? How did they succeed? How did they do all this?
They went to work all day and they came home and their laundry was done and their meals were made and their children were cared for, and they probably don't know their birthdays.
I really think, like, this is another one of those quotes that I can't really directly say, but like, I think someone said, like, how I got tenure is because I have a wife. Like, so what you need is a wife in academia. You need to be a white male and you need to have a wife.
I once when I was a single mom for a couple of years, and I decided I needed a wife. Not a husband.
That's what you need. Like, in order to be successful, have tenure, have all of this stuff, you basically need someone to do your life for you, right? And a lot of wives do that for their husbands, I think, and these husbands are extremely successful.
Well, and I think, one of the things that I'm starting to see a little bit more with like a younger generation of women who are branching into a more professional, especially anybody that, maybe was more of a stay-at-home mom and then, took steps to do something, like hiring the housekeeper, hiring the nanny, hiring the lawn care, all those things that you used to do that for whatever reason you still feel compelled to do. Hire it. Do your thing. It's okay. You don't have to do both, because there was such a weird dichotomy of what's expected from women. Are we supposed to be raising our families and mopping our floors, or are we supposed to be reaching for, career goals? Because it's impossible to do both. But if you.
Absolutely. I think, generally speaking, and patriarchy and all of these things historically might have had a role to play here, but I think, generally speaking, a lot of men have gotten away with getting a lot of that help from their partners because, societal expectations and all that, and women, I know so many women have like put their careers on the side, or, they used to be really good, but then they gave it up to take care of the kids. This is like standard story. Like, this happens all the time. I hear about it all the time. I meet these people all the time. So I think that's happened, but yeah, if you do want to be, if you do as a woman and without a wife, if you do want to be successful, I think exactly what you said, like hire the help. I mean, I get someone to clean my house. That's time I have now for my research or for relaxation.
Yeah,
These
absolutely.
people make you really tired. So I don't have the energy sometimes.
I just spent a long time. I've been working with a health coach for a really long time, and one of my biggest takeaways from the whole thing was, and it was reiterated to me by one of my best friends. When things are more difficult and I'm feeling the most stressed, it's time to double down on my self-care. And
Yes.
and it sounds ridiculous. It took a really, 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 really long time for that to sink in, because naturally when things are tough and I'm stressed, my instinct is do more, be more, do more, be more. Get that done.
Yeah.
Check the boxes, get things done. And I was just like, spiral. But if I stop and I take a bath and I journal for a minute, well then don't you know I'm ready to just check those boxes. But I literally had to work with a health coach for months and months and months to learn that enough to be able to say it and sometimes implement it.
There you go. Yeah. And see, so you're so driven, right? So like if you bring, and I feel like I see a lot of women, we're like this. We are so driven. We want to, honestly, we're so goal oriented. That's why we're actually naturally successful in all of this type of work. So like, I think us being successful and doing really well is not the problem. Us kind of balancing it with taking care of ourselves might be the problem. So like,
Yeah.
I think you hit it on the head. Like,
Well,
but
it's a weird thing that I have to balance even in my message, with both my coffee company and my foundation. I'm all about, ambitious women and, striving to reach more. So I have to also constantly also preach self-care, and that being just as important for those goals, and that you're going to be more apt in reaching those goals if you're doing that self-care. So it's interesting. The message of ambitious women can't just only be work, dig, push.
Yeah.
It is all of that, but it's also when you're tired, rest.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And I think we'll only do better if we did that, because we'll just burn out if we don't rest, if we don't take care of ourselves. And that's happened too with me. And like, that's why I started the blog, that it's kind of like journaling, and I do a lot of writing for personal, just no blog writing as well. And you're exactly right. Like if we don't take the time, like it's almost like working smart rather than working hard. Like I definitely encourage it. Like take your time,
Yeah.
go slow down if it feels, because I mean, we're going to do well, it's just, we have to, it's a marathon, especially in research. I think it's a marathon, and sometimes slowing down and taking a chill pill and taking rest and everything is good.
I think it's essential. I think it's absolutely essential, but that pressure to succeed, that pressure to be better, that pressure to have to work harder because it takes longer for us for whatever reason, is I think what has perpetuated the competition and, the career advancement by stepping on others, and, just overall general burnout. So, I guess that's what we're all here to do, is just find our little niche and explore it and tell others how to not get caught in that trap.
For sure. Like I think it's completely, sometimes I procrastinate, and and then there's right now probably I'm not being like the most driven, for example, but like it's also weird because like even when I'm not driven, like back of my mind I'm still thinking, procrastination is our own process. It's the process of creativity, and like it's I'm still thinking about how to do things, how to do them better. sometimes I take like a really long shower and I, think or I go for a walk and I like those types of times and those types of activities are still, like you said, essential. And I mean, I think that will only make us better researchers and other types of professional. Like it's not going to make you worse. In fact, like doing too much work is bad for your health and probably bad for your career because it'll burn you out. So I think, yeah.
Stress is the worst, and stress with women. Like I mentioned, I went on this journey with my health coach, and I originally reached out to her to lose weight, and we started with the typical diet and exercise, and that wasn't not that it wasn't working. We just somehow naturally moved more into mental health. And don't you know, without the diet and exercise, once I addressed some of the mental health burnout things that the bad habits that I was in about sitting in front of the computer and push and not doing self-care, as soon as some of that stuff started to flip-flop, miraculously I started losing some weight. Not like huge amounts, but it was just like, oh wow, okay. So imagine if I actually like worked in some nutrition and exercise, what I could do, as long as my balance is in. It's amazing. Yeah. Such a concept.
Yes, stress hormones. Yeah, that'll get you
every time. Every time.
I think you're absolutely right. Like nutrition, of course, great for you, and exercise. For me, I mean, I really think that exercise is like, for me, has the most benefits mentally. Like it's just good for mental health. But yeah, if I were trying to lose weight, I would probably like, if I really strategize, it would be more sleep and more relaxation.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to start there. Your body won't do anything if you're all stressed out and it's just that cortisol's taking over.
Absolutely. It's all just the hormones and chemicals and everything. That's what's going on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm very excited that we were able to share a bit about what you're doing. I hope that there is somebody watching that, really is able to utilize this information. I think it's fascinating. Thank you for doing what you're doing and, pushing and, making more room. You're in there making more room for everybody else, and I love that you're also taking some time to, speak to the next generation so that we can see some, big changes for the next generation. I have 2 daughters myself and a son, and I work, with all of them all the time about making sure that there's room for all of us at the table. So I appreciate what you're doing, and we will be sure to have this up on our website along with all of your contact information so people can get in touch with you.
Yay, absolutely. Like, yeah, don't hesitate yourself, for your kids or anyone else, if you need to reach out, contact me or whatever. Feel free. I would love to, do whatever I can, especially with, having contacts, at least in the defense industry, in the engineering world. I would love to help anybody get a job or whatever. That's how I got a job, is by getting a referral. So that's definitely the way to do it if someone's wondering. So yeah.
It was funny. I saw something the other day, and it was ridiculous. It was like a social media post, but it was about people that skill collect. And I do have a habit of collecting skills. I really love to have skills, even if I'll never use them again. Having them makes me happy, but it's also like, I also love collecting people and networking opportunities and information on people, because you never know. Someday I'm going to have a conversation with somebody and you're going to be the one that I'm like, you've got to refer back to this fearless female, get her number, she's the one you need to talk to. So I think it's really fantastic, and I think the more that we network, one of the things that I say often, I have 2 big things that I preach with my foundation. One is that there should be no competition among women. Instead, let's dance together and attract abundance into our lives. And the other one is we've got to lift as we rise. So that's what we're trying to do here, and I really hope that, your story and everything reaches the appropriate people at the appropriate time and really helps someone.
Me too. Thank you so much for doing all this.
Thank you. I know we're all very busy, so taking time out of your schedule to meet with me is very much appreciated.
Thank you. Same here. Thank you for doing it.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Okay.